Hey guys, this is Solution Podfic, and today we're going to be reading Who's Old Now by Larry Boiswavi. This is Chapter 8. There was absolutely nothing like flying in Billy's opinion. Absolutely nothing. People had asked him before what flying felt like to him. Civilians, his aunt, and uncles, even some of the Justice League had asked him before. And the truth was, he couldn't explain it. Was it like a prehensile tail? An entirely different set of muscles that the other people didn't have and let him do things that others couldn't? While the comparison of a different muscle made a certain amount of sense, it just didn't encompass the full feeling. It wasn't just a limb attached to you, it was something more. And it wasn't like it was for Danny, when gravity was hardly more than a suggestion. Danny could transfer his flight to others when in contact, so Billy knew what it felt like. And it certainly wasn't what it felt like as Captain Marvel. Everything was just zero gravity. Absolutely nothing affected the way you wanted to go except for wanting to go that way. It was entirely, completely effortless. That wasn't what flying was like for him. If he had to pick up something, how flying really felt like for him, it'd be how professional figure skaters looked. It was a glide through the air, seemingly so easy but entirely deceptive of the effort that went into it. It was full body. He used every muscle he had to maintain control. The impeccable balance of figure skaters as they twirled and glided, leapt through the air only to crash back down onto an unforgiving surface and never lose their stride. Young children had to learn how to walk to develop a sense of balance before going to anything more complicated like dancing or any of that. Flight was teaching yourself how to balance all over again. What force do you exert to stay upright? Where? Did balancing on one foot make it easier? Like you'd seen other heroes do, flying upright with one leg tucked like an absurdly colored flamingo. It was both as freeing as it was intensive. Muscle memory to focus, intentions to purpose. It looked like defying gravity to some people, but it most certainly wasn't. You had to work with gravity to catch people falling off buildings, to slow the inertia of a train without killing everyone inside, with what was basically a stoppable force against an unmovable object. One of those would win. One of those could be irreparably broken. Superpowers weren't easy. The learning curve of broken cement when he landed with too much force, learning how to ease into turns and pivots of flying rather than catapulting himself into billboards, or an opponent, or an opposing billboard, as happened. How much electricity would knock someone out, how much would kill them. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. It was exhilarating. It was awful. The fear. So much fear when he realized what he was capable of. He was so lucky. Billy thought, looking over to Danny where he was swatting his hand playfully through a cloud, that he had someone to guide him. Someone who had went through it before he did. Who could teach him, help him, if he only reached out to take it. And he did. Last one to the exosphere is a rotten egg, Billy called before sheeing up. He laughed when he heard Danny's indignant squawk behind him. Billy relished the wind throwing his hair around his face, how the blue sky tried to swallow him whole. It was utterly beautiful, how the clouds he punched left a brief dew on his skin before being whipped away by the wind. Anyone below would see the sudden change in the shape of the cloud in a red blur, but that was it. There was so much anonymity to be found in the stratosphere. And also Danny whipping past him, form vaguely translucent in the way that meant he was intangible. Danny was taking advantage of being intangible for no air resistance? Well, two could play at that game. Marvel cast a quick speed charm that he picked up from Mercury and rocketed ahead. Billy saw Danny make a face and then stuck out his tongue before pulling up beside him. The wind would have torn his breath away if he needed to breathe, and it howled in his ears like a triumphant shout. It was all over too soon, and the speed of a god overcame the advantage of intangibility. He pivoted to a stop, a chill he barely felt enveloping him in a thin atmosphere. "I win," Billy called. Danny came to an abrupt halt beside him, pouting ridiculously. "Oh, come on, you used magic. That's cheating." "You used intangibility. Turnabout is a fair play." Billy crossed his arms with a smirk. "Gasp! So rude. Betrayed by my very own son. I shall never recover. Tragedy of the highest degree. How shall I ever? Billy? Are you okay?" And Billy just blinked his watering eyes. He hadn't even known he could cry as Marvel, and stuttered. That's the first time you've called me your son." Billy wrung his hands and looked down. He didn't know what was going to happen next. His mind spun out into worst-case scenarios. Danny would take it back, that he didn't feel the same way towards Billy, but that was stupid, because they had already claimed each other as a family, but it felt different to be a family than dad and son. A white-gloved hand reached over to him and took his, stopping their nervous motions. He looked up to Danny's nervous, glowing face, a hesitant smile adorning his features. "Yeah, you're my son. Not like, or I view you as, to me, you are my son. And it's okay if you're not ready to Or you don't want to reciprocate that I love you, Billy, very, very much. Billy felt the tears obscure his vision overflow, and he leaned forward to bury his face in Danny's thin shoulder. Dad, he choked out. He felt small arms come up to encircle him, holding him close softly, tenderly, and somewhere deep in his subconscious, in the part that was Marvel and more than just body, past champions felt warmth, even though they were long dead. Captain Marvel did not get held softly. Champions did not receive tender hugs from their parents. Magical avatars of the gods did not get happy endings, but this time, maybe they would. Dad, Billy said again, and it felt just as right as the first time he said it. My son, Danny murmured back, my son. High above the clouds, where there was no one else than themselves and the stars reaching above, Billy let himself smile and cry. He was home. Alright guys, that is the end of chapter 8 of Who's Old Now by Leah Wiswavi. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next video.